Today is China's special day, the Tomb Sweeping Festival, known in Chinese as Qingming. It is one of those traditions that quietly carries the weight of thousands of years without ever needing to announce its importance. It doesn't come with the loud celebration of the Lunar New Year or the spectacle of fireworks. Instead, it arrives gently, usually in early April, when the weather starts to warm, the trees begin to turn green again, and people feel that subtle shift from winter into spring. It is, at its heart, a time for remembering the dead, but also, in a deeper sense, a time for understanding life, continuity, and belonging. If you walk through a cemetery in China during Qingming, you'll see families gathered around graves, clearing weeds, wiping dust off tombstones, and placing offerings, fruit, tea, wine, sometimes even symbolic paper money. It's not a somber or purely mournful atmosphere. Children run around, elders chat, and people share food. There is grief, yes, but it's woven together with warmth and familiarity. The dead are not distant figures. They are still part of the family. That is the essence of Qingming. It is not about death alone, but about relationships. The living maintain a bond with those who came before them. That bond isn't abstract or philosophical, it's enacted through physical acts. Cleaning a grave, bowing, offering food, these are gestures that say, "You are still with us." The origins of Qingming go back more than 2,000 years, tied to both seasonal observances and historical legend. One often cited story is that of Jie Zitui, a loyal follower of a prince during the spring and autumn period. When the prince later became a ruler, he forgot Jie. When he remembered and tried to summon him back, Jie refused and retreated into the mountains. In an attempt to force him out, the ruler ordered the forest burned, only to accidentally cause Jie's death. In remorse, the ruler declared a period where no fire could be used, and people would eat cold food and remember the dead. Over time, this merged with seasonal rituals and evolved into Qingming. But beyond the stories, what matters is what the festival reveals about Chinese culture. Qingming reflects a worldview in which time is not linear and disconnected but continuous. The past is not gone, it lives within the present. Ancestors are not just remembered, they are acknowledged as active participants in the family's ongoing story. It brings us to a broader question: why do people often say that China is not just a country but a civilization? At first glance, it might sound like a poetic exaggeration. After all, China has borders, a government, a flag, just like any other country. But when people describe China as a civilization, they point to something deeper than its political structure. They are talking about continuity, scale, and cultural coherence that stretches across millennia. To understand this, it helps to think about how most modern countries define themselves. Many nations today are relatively young in historical terms. Their identities are tied to recent events, independence movements, revolutions, or the drawing of borders in the last few centuries. Their cultures, while rich, are often composites of influences that came together over shorter periods. China, by contrast, has a recorded history that extends back over 3,000 years, with cultural roots that go even further. More importantly, there is a remarkable degree of continuity across that time. Dynasties rose and fell, borders expanded and contracted, but certain core elements remained recognizable: the written language, philosophical traditions, social structures, and rituals like Qingming. Take the Chinese writing system, for example. While it has evolved, modern readers can still recognize characters that were used thousands of years ago. It creates a direct link between people today and their ancestors, a rarity elsewhere. It's not just about reading old texts, it's about feeling that those texts belong to you. Philosophy is another thread of continuity. Teachings from Confucianism, Taoism, and later Buddhism have shaped Chinese thought for centuries. Confucian ideas about family, hierarchy, respect for elders, and social harmony are still visible in everyday life. Qingming itself is deeply influenced by Confucian values, particularly the emphasis on filial piety, the duty to honor and care for one's parents and ancestors. That is where the idea of civilization becomes clearer. A civilization is not just a political entity, it is a long-standing system of meaning. It includes language, values, customs, and ways of understanding the world that persist over time, even as governments change. In China's case, the state has taken many forms: imperial dynasties, republic, socialist government, but the underlying cultural framework has shown a striking resilience. People still celebrate traditional festivals, still cook dishes tied to specific regions and histories, and still follow customs passed down through generations. Qingming is a perfect example of this resilience. It has survived dynastic changes, wars, revolutions, and modernization. Even during periods when traditional practices were discouraged, the essence of the festival endured. Today, in cities filled with skyscrapers and high-speed trains, people still make time to visit graves, burn incense, and remember. It suggests that China's identity is not dependent on any single political structure. It is rooted in a shared cultural memory that transcends those structures. That is what people mean when they call China a civilization. Another aspect to consider is scale. China is vast, both geographically and demographically. It contains a wide variety of landscapes, dialects, and local traditions. In many countries, such diversity might lead to fragmentation. In China, however, there has historically been a strong sense of belonging to a larger whole. That doesn't mean that everything is uniform, far from it. Regional differences are significant. But there is a shared framework that allows people from different parts of China to recognize each other as part of the same cultural world. Festivals like Qingming are observed across the country, even if the details vary. The core idea, honoring ancestors, remains consistent. This shared framework is reinforced by education, literature, and collective memory. Classical texts, historical narratives, and cultural symbols provide a common reference point. When people participate in Qingming, they are not just performing a personal ritual, they are engaging in something that countless generations before them have also done. There is also a different sense of time embedded in this worldview. In many modern contexts, time is seen as moving forward, leaving the past behind. Progress is often defined as breaking away from tradition. In the Chinese context, while change and development are certainly valued, there is also a strong emphasis on continuity. The past is not something to be discarded, it is something to be integrated. Qingming embodies this idea beautifully. It is a festival that exists in the present, but is entirely oriented toward the past. Yet it does not feel backward-looking in a negative sense. Instead, it creates a sense of grounding. By remembering where you come from, you have a clearer sense of who you are. This connection between past and present is one of the defining features of a civilization. It creates depth. It allows people to see themselves as part of a long chain, rather than isolated individuals. It's also worth noting that the concept of civilization doesn't imply superiority. Saying that China is a civilization is not about ranking it above other countries. It is about recognizing a particular kind of historical and cultural continuity. Other civilizations exist as well. India, for example, is often described in similar terms. What they share is a deep-rooted cultural identity that persists over long periods. In the modern world, where globalization is blending cultures and accelerating change, this sense of continuity can be both a strength and a challenge. On one hand, it provides stability and a strong sense of identity. On the other hand, it can create tension when new ideas and practices are introduced. Qingming itself has adapted to modern life in interesting ways. In some places, people now use digital platforms to honor ancestors, creating virtual memorials or sending online offerings. Environmental concerns have led to changes in how offerings are made, with some communities discouraging the burning of paper items. Yet the core intention remains the same. This adaptability is another hallmark of a living civilization. It is not frozen in time, it evolves. But it does so in a way that maintains a connection to its roots. When you step back and look at Qingming and the broader context of Chinese culture, you begin to see how the two ideas, festival and civilization, are intertwined. Qingming is not just a tradition, it reflects a deeper worldview. It shows how people relate to time, family, and identity. It also reveals something about how history is experienced. In many places, history is something you learn about in books. In China, history is something you participate in. When you take part in Qingming, you are not just remembering your own ancestors, you are engaging in a practice that has been repeated for generations. You are, in a sense, stepping into history. This experiential connection to the past is part of what gives Chinese civilization its depth. It is not just about knowing that something existed, it is about feeling that it still matters. Of course, China today is also a modern nation-state, with all the complexities that come with that. It is deeply integrated into the global economy, engaged in international politics, and undergoing rapid social and technological change. But beneath all of that, there is a layer of cultural continuity that shapes how people think and act. Understanding China as a civilization helps make sense of this complexity. It explains why certain traditions endure, why certain values remain influential, and why history plays such a central role in shaping identity. Qingming, in its quiet, unassuming way, captures all of this. It is a day when people pause, step away from the rush of modern life, and reconnect with something older and deeper. It reminds them that they are part of a larger story, one that began long before they were born, and will continue long after they are gone. In that sense, Qingming is not just about the past. It is about continuity. It is about the idea that life is not a series of isolated moments, but a thread that connects generations. And that, ultimately, is what makes China more than just a country. It is a civilization, a living, evolving tapestry of history, culture, and human experience that stretches across time.